Our eighth talk in this series of Understanding God's Design for Relationships looks at the area of intimacy. We are still in Station 3 in our 4 stations model. Station 1, we fill up with God's love and truth. Station 2, into those overlapping circles, we find our identity. And then from that, we find our we space connection. We've talked a lot about how to protect that by resolving conflicts well, forgiving well, communicating well. This talk is about how to allow that we space to flourish. And I'm identifying 4 primary types of intimacy, and this is not an exhaustive list, but I'm picking 4 that I think are good representations of the intimacy that's available to us in that we space that we can cultivate. And this is what really gets us excited about the relationship. So let's take a look at those 4 types and see what we come up with. You'll remember that I-we overlap from our 4 stations model. And so we're still in that green we space, and we look at these 4 types: recreational intimacy, emotional intimacy, intellectual intimacy, and physical intimacy. And let me just say a word that all of these are built on the spiritual foundation of intimacy. That will be another talk. So these are the intimacies that we're going to focus on today. Let's take a look at them one at a time. Recreational intimacy. Couples find time to have fun together. Several years into marriage, we often have to plan what once came naturally. Talk to any couple and they'll probably agree with this. We used to do things naturally. Didn't even have to plan it, just being together. We found fun things to do. We laughed, we played. It was lighthearted. Now, there are always exceptions with couples who just got started on the wrong foot. I mean, yeah. But I'm talking about the general flow of, I just want to be with this person. I remember Sue and I, in our early days of dating, we were at Wheaton College in the winter, and I mean, we would be outside and we'd break into a snowball fight, or just crazy things we'd be doing with sleds and sliding and just having fun, just playing in the outdoors, and that brisk cold night, taking a walk and just enjoying being with this person. It was effortless. That same degree of recreational intimacy then, over time, has to be a little bit more intentional. And since I'm talking about a personal experience, I might as well tell you where this concept came from. About 7 years into marriage, Sue and I were at Westminster Christian School in Miami. I was the guidance counselor. Sue was working as a teacher in the junior high. And we're at that crossroads of our marriage, 7 years in. Grandparents are talking about grandchildren. Are we going to start a family? Sue and I had gone back and forth. She went back to school after our undergrad. I went back, and we would support the other one as they went back. It was my turn to go back and work on my PhD. I knew that if I did that, I would have the maximum flexibility to do the things that I felt gifted and to do and love to do. And we just didn't know. We were totally lost. Should we stay at Westminster? Should we go to another Christian organization? We just agonized, and it becomes so cumbersome. After dinner each night, we would sit there and any fresh insights today, anything God's shown you. Well, one evening in particular, I took a margarine tub lid and I threw it around a divider from our little condo in Miami and landed perfectly in the sink. I mean, it was a great throw. And immediately we went back to our student ministry days where we played disc golf. If you don't know disc golf, it's it's not a frisbee, but it's a frisbee-like disc that you throw into a chain basket, catches it, and that's how you score. It took us back to those student ministry days, and Susan got a margarine tub or Tupperware lid or something, and she threw it, and took her 2 to get it in. Okay, so that it was on. We put together an 18-hole course in our 2-bedroom condo, Guest room lamp par 3. And we're throwing these lids and laughing hysterically at the different targets we're creating. And about hole, I don't know, somewhere about hole, I think it was in the back half, maybe about hole 10 or 11. Sue's parents called, very godly, wonderful people from northern New Jersey, just good, solid people. They called and said, so what are you doing tonight? And Sue actually told them that we were playing margarine tub lid golf in our condominium. And I don't know why, but they felt the need to come and visit within the next couple weeks. They always had some doubts about me, but I think this confirmed that their daughter was in trouble. We laughed so hard, and you know what happened? Within just a few days, it was like the clouds parted and it was crystal clear. This is what I want you to do. Now, it hasn't always happened that way. But in this occasion, God sent us a message to say, would you two just lighten up? You're taking some of this way too seriously. You're taking the responsibility of this. Let me direct it. Let me get you where I want you to be. And when we got out of the way, it was just this beautiful opening. And we never forgot that, what it meant to have recreational intimacy. The reminder when you're doing recreational intimacy is that the focus is on your companion, not on your specific activity or your level of proficiency. It's not, and I know some couples can be really competitive, and that's okay, that's great, as long as it doesn't go overboard. Because recreational intimacy communicates that you enjoy, of all the people you could be with, you enjoy being with me. That's a good feeling. And the phrase here that I'm using is, I value recreational intimacy because it lifts my spirits and prevents me from becoming overly burdened with the cares of this life. I need that. I need that uplift. In fact, wherever I've lived, I've needed at least one or two friends who are a little bit irreverent. And you'll say, wow, that's terrible. No, for me, it was life-giving because we could laugh. And so recreational intimacy is God's way of saying, would you enjoy what I've given you to enjoy? The next one is emotional intimacy. And couples enter each other's world to find out what's going on inside. This is a lot like the perspective taking we talked about in our last talk. Two practical ways to gain access to the other person's world are the two-question probe and the emotion detector. Let's take a look at the two-question probe. What happens when you've been apart from someone you care about and you get back together? How was your day? How was your trip? How are the kids? And we give this sort of, it was good, it was fine, it was exhausting, it was tired, it was crazy. And then we, without following up, we jump into the next item on the agenda. Okay, what's for dinner? Who's got this? Who's taking care of this? What are we eating? Takeout, cooking? What's going on? What would happen if we did the two-question probe and we took what was answered in the first question? Oh, it was exhausting. Really? Well, what was exhausting about it? I'd love to hear. It's that second question that takes me into the other person's world. It seems so simple, doesn't it? But yet we don't do it. And you might be thinking, well, I'm tired. I don't want to do that. I don't want to talk about work at home. Well, that's great. But I have a hunch that your partner may not want to talk about your specific job responsibilities, but very much wants to talk about how you're doing. So don't withhold how you're doing. And you may need to pause that follow-up second question till you have some space to do it. But you want to at least give them the opportunity to talk about it if they want to. So what was so crazy about it? What was so great about it? Or what was so difficult? It's the follow-up question that gets us into their emotional world. Now, the second part of that, the emotion detector, the emotion detector, is when we hear an emotion word, good or bad, high or low, that emotion detector in my mind goes off, just like it would when there's smoke or a warning of some sort. It's that That means that I've just heard and processed an emotion word. And if that's a difficult thing for you, Google a list of emotion words. It's like a new language that you can learn. I do that with clients. I have them take that list and then put on their devices periodic alarms that during the day, when that alarm goes off, as soon as they can, they pull out that list of words and they say, okay, it's not this, not this. This is what's going on inside. And we develop a way of putting to words what's going on inside. As we do that for our own world, we then can do it as we connect with others. And we hear the emotion detector, emotion word, follow up with the emotion. That's the entrance into their world, into what's going on that you want to connect with. So those are the two ways to get there. The reminder here is the deeply personal information that comes from this connection can never be used during conflict. It cannot be ammunition, or it will shut down the emotional sharing. Emotional intimacy communicates that you want to discover and support the parts of me no one else knows. I've heard one spouse put it this way recently: I just want him to see me, Everybody else can know about me, but and what she was saying is, I want him to see the real me. I want him to want to see the real me. And another phrase I hear sometimes is, I would just like to talk to you like I talk to my girlfriends. What she's saying is, I want to be able to talk beyond the surface. See, when we talked about communication last time, when the couples come in and I ask them, kind of, why are you here? What's going on? We don't have to communicate. And this has happened a number of times. It's usually the husband, but not always. He'll look at his wife and say, what are you talking about? We spent 20 minutes last night talking. And she'll say, oh yeah, we talked, but we talked about managing a household, about who needs to be what, where, when, and all the logistics. I want to talk about something other than logistics. I want to talk about what's going on below the surface. And he'll kind of look at her like, that's not what I do. Well, and it may be reversed, and maybe she's saying, in fact, some of the younger couples I see, he's way more emotional than she is. And she says, would you just suck it up and let's go? So it needs to be something that each couple finds this nice dance about how they connect beyond below the surface in an emotional place where I'm known, accepted, loved, and wanting to be explored by this partner. The phrase here is, I value emotional intimacy because any barriers separating us are identified and removed. That's a good thing. Our next area is a little bit strange when you think about intimacy. Intellectual intimacy almost sounds like it's an oxymoron, but it really isn't. When I explain it, you'll see why. Intellectual intimacy means that couples stimulate growth and by exploring new concepts and ideas together. One of the benefits of this type of intimacy is discovering how the other person thinks or processes new information. That's a good thing to know, especially when it comes to things like decision making or bringing in new information or trying to figure out how this new appliance works. Or I want to know how you process information if I'm going to be living with you. Because if you're a rapid fire processor like Sue is, she has the capacity to sum up the situation and start coming up with a lot of possible solutions before I've stopped whining about the problem. And so Some people are fast processors. Some people take some time and go a little deeper and look at it from a couple of different angles. It's not a right or wrong. It's just knowing how the other person processes. It's really helpful. The reminder here is the sharing your vast wealth of information on most subjects is not as important as learning from and drawing out your spouse. Learning from and drawing out. Sometimes I'll tell couples, your assignment this week is to not put anything into the conversation, but only try to draw your spouse out. The questions, the validation, the things that we've been talking about, draw them out. This is really a good thing. You think about why do couples or families sometimes have really difficult vacations? Some of the most intense couple sessions I've ever had have been after vacations. It's because on vacation, I'm out of my comfort zone and I have to make a lot of decisions when I'm tired or hungry. And if I don't know how other people are processing, I'm going to just bulldoze my way through. And that's just not going to work. I want to understand, oh yeah, I need to approach it this way, and we're making this decision. We know from previous experience, we kind of work on these things this way. That's intellectual intimacy. It can also mean couples finding a book or podcast to listen to, and then come back and share their notes. What'd you think? What'd you pick up? Some couples do this through devotionals, but it's sharing how I'm thinking about things that is important for me. And you'll notice in our conversations, we're talking about emotions, we're talking about thoughts. It's a holistic approach of all of me being brought into the relationship. That's the way God made it. I value intellectual intimacy because I can share what is on my mind without being judged. Isn't that good? I can share what's on my mind without being afraid or concerned that you're going to judge me or think that's just silly. And then finally, physical intimacy. Couples are given the opportunity to give and receive unconditional affection here. This becomes a safe way to meet our need to be touched and held. Physical intimacy may or may not lead to sexual expression. The reminder here is difficulties with the physical aspects of our relationship are often traced to non-physical problems. Giving or withholding physical affection in order to get one's way is never a good idea. So if we're working on the physical relationship, sometimes there are misses about the signals. Maybe he wants to just sit and watch something, and him showing a little bit of affection, she's thinking, okay, this is going to be our night to have sex. Or she snuggles up and he's like, green lights on, okay, we're going. And there's no communication, there's no discussion, and then there's a miss because of expectations. We need to be able to talk about how our minds are thinking, our bodies are responding to different things so that we can make sure we're not having these misses in expectations. Withholding sex to get one's way is so dangerous. And I'm going to make a statement here that some may disagree with, and people might find this to be not a very healthy biblical stand, but I think I can make a strong case that it is. And that is a husband or wife, we'll just say for sake of discussion, it's the wife, who is giving her husband sex. And I say it that way. It's not a mutual enjoyment. She's giving it to him. Because somewhere in her background, she's been told it's your responsibility to make sure your husband is satisfied sexually, or he may go wandering. Your duty as a wife, and that's so traditionally skewed. And what that causes is a wife to feel like almost a prostitute giving her husband sex. It's so not God's design. I would encourage couples, never feel like you have to be sexual. You have to have sex if you're not in a good place. Now, some of you will say, well, what if we're never in a good place? Does that mean we never have sex? No, but it means that you deal with what's preventing you from having that degree of intimacy. Don't go with what I call a pseudo-intimacy when the relationship isn't there. If you're not connecting, communicating, enjoying, sacrificially loving, then what makes you think you're going to have the ultimate expression of that love that God created? It goes so much beyond a physical act. And so if you want the sex the way God designed it, make it the way, approach it the way He designed it, as a comprehensive, beautiful culmination of what's working well in the relationship. And if it's not, address it, get help. Don't just go year after year with this, okay, it's been 3 days, it's been a week, I guess I need to give him sex. No. That's not going to do it. That's going to cause so much damage. Some of the sex therapists will talk about things like no sex nights. And here's the thinking behind that. On a no sex night that's agreed upon in advance, the couple can be as comfortably affectionate knowing that they're not going to have sex that night. And they can enjoy each other, snuggle, touch, hold, hug, knowing that that's an end in itself. And it's amazing what that does and how our bodies are wired to enjoy that kind of connection without pressure, to enjoy it as an end in itself. And then when we decide we want to have, and all of this is under the sexual umbrella, I'm just talking about the different types of expression. When we decide, okay, that it does want to be culminated in a sexual intercourse, then the comfort level that's been established with the non-sex nights allows that other night to be very, very wonderful, much better, because I've learned how to enjoy the touch. I've learned how to be close. I've learned how to work through where we have some differences, and we've talked about it. It's not Hollywood. It doesn't just happen without any effort or discussion. So make sure that you're having those physical intimacy discussions. And maybe you'll end up like the young couple that practiced the no sex night, and they were so embarrassed. They're just like, this whole thing about sex. They had been told all their lives about the evils of sex in this conservative environment. And just say a word about, okay, wedding night, you're supposed to flip the switch and it's all suddenly God's gift. It doesn't work that way sometimes. But in this couple, it wasn't, they weren't quite getting there. And so they tried the no sex night, and they came in just all embarrassed and blotchy, and they started kind of giggling. They were just so young, and they said it worked. But in 1201, it was just amazing. And so the no sex night concept worked for them because they could relax and enjoy each other and not have the pressure of am I going to live up to someone's expectations? Is this going to be what they thought? Oh, well, are they comparing me to previous partners? And all that stuff that clogs up our minds and shuts our bodies down gets eliminated with the enjoyment of the physical intimacy. And I would just say for couples who are struggling here, Christians, so many couples won't go to get help with this. It's just so unfortunate. They'll go get help with other things, but they won't go get help with their failure to really be able to connect. And it's unfortunate. So those are the 4 types of intimacy. Perhaps you would choose one to work on at a time and find ways to take what I've given you and expand it, adjust it, modify it to make it fit for your specific situation. But this is God's desire to see you enjoy what He has designed for you to enjoy to its fullest. And anything less is missing out on the glory of what He's done in creating relationships that reflect His image.